And this one is my own personal pick of the week. And this is interesting because I wasn't super interested in this one just based on my initial impression of the theme, which is that you're helping Ada Lovelace build the first computer. But after looking into this one some more, I'm really interested in the gameplay on this one, and I think the theme actually props up that gameplay quite well, and I think it blends in really, really nicely, and it actually gets me pretty excited about the theme. And one big part of that is that the way that you actually score points in this game is very mathematical, and this board here represents the computer that you're going to be building up throughout the game. And you're going to be adding different colored dice to it, but you're also going to be adding different cogs. Each of these cogs are going to have different mathematical symbols on them in order to add or multiply or subtract the values of your various dice, and this is essentially how you score points in the game. And you might be wondering, why would you ever want a cog with a minus symbol on it if the result of these formulas you're creating end up being your victory points? And the answer to that is that you mostly don't, although each player will be starting with 2 of these minus cogs at the beginning of the game, and you might just want to get them out on your board for other victory point conditions that you may acquire throughout the game, because players can actually get these little punch cards that slot into each of the columns and rows of your board, and these create different objectives that players are trying to achieve, and maybe the die or cog that you're putting there is helping to achieve that objective. And also, if we just disregard those punch cards for a second, each of the columns that you create in this game do have a maximum scoring amount. This is a value that you can increase throughout the game, but if your formula is already way above that amount, putting a minus value there isn't going to do anything to affect your score, as long as you planned this out well enough, and this is where a lot of those fun decisions come into play here. Not to mention, those punch cards are a really cool thematic touch. This is a game where players are primarily taking their actions through a rondel system, but then you're going to be drafting a die as the outcome of this, and then on a future turn you can use that die to take a different action depending on the color of that die. This game does also use deck building, but that is primarily to augment your actions or allow you to take additional actions on your turn. And what's neat about the deck building in this game is that anytime that you gain a card, you're going to be discarding one of your other cards, so you never have to worry about trying to take actions in order to get cards out of your hand. This is a game that plays over a series of turns, and on a player's turn they can either take a workshop action or a dice action. Whenever you take a workshop action, you're going to be choosing a die out on the rondel board and then pushing it into the next location clockwise. Whenever you do this, you're going to be pushing a die out of that new location, and that's the die that you're going to be able to take into your possession. The only caveat here is that the die that you kick out has to be of a lower value than the die that you pushed into it. Each of these locations also have their own specific actions that you can take anytime that you kick a die out of them, and these can allow you to do things like gain cards of different types, gain additional resources of different types, or even move up various research tracks. You also gain an additional bonus if you're able to completely clear out one of these locations. So if I was to kick the 6 into the next location, that would clear out the location where the 6 was, and that would grant me a special bonus. But after you've resolved all of this, you'll also be able to optionally play a card from your hand for additional benefits. Then after you've done that, you might be able to move up various research tracks if you have certain cards that align with the colored die that you just drafted. You'll then be keeping that die until you're able to install it on your computer, and like I said, the value is what will be determining your victory points at the end of the game. So of course, having a higher valued die does give you more victory point potential, but that's not the only thing the value of the die is used for, because like I said, there are these various objectives here that might require dice of certain values. And I also mentioned that you get to play a card optionally whenever you do draft a die, and the cards do have requirements as to when they can be played depending on the value of the die that you drafted. But like I said, you can either take a workshop action or you can take a dice action, and once you actually have a dice in your possession, then you can spend it in order to take its action. And there's 4 different colored dice offered in this game, and there's 4 different locations out on the board corresponding to those colors. Playing an orange die allows you to draft new cards into your hand. Playing a yellow die is going to allow you to move up the travel board, which can grant you with different bonus actions and resources. Playing a green die is going to allow you to move up the institution track, which also gains you bonus actions and resources in a different way. And then finally, we have the purple die, which players will be able to use to gain those punch cards. What's interesting about all these 4 locations is that each of them also do have a small mini game and a decision you'll get to make when you go there, which can also gain you additional victory points at the end of the game. Once you've done all that, you'll then be able to place your die into one of the open locations on your computer board. But whether or not you take a workshop action or a dice action, you're always allowed to take one bonus action at the end of your turn, and you can do this to either spend resources to increase the max amount of points that you can get for one of your columns on the computer, or you can use this bonus action to install cogs at the various locations between the dice. In order to do this, you need to use actions previously in order to clear out those locations so that the cog can actually be installed. And of course, you do need to acquire those cogs, which you can do through the various actions offered in the game. The game continues like this, and the player with the most victory points at the end of the game wins the game. And if you want to check this one out, I will have it linked in the description down below.